All right, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Me and Justin have been talking a lot about
Yes.
the Leafs today, but one of the big talking points coming out of the game, outside of them winning, is Mitch Marner at the end of that game with Matthew Tkachuk and him getting punched in the face and not responding. So let's bring in Matthew Barnaby of BET99, a guy who's been on the ice, who knows what it takes. 62 playoff games, if my research is correct. Barney, if that was you on the ice and you saw your star getting punched in the face that way, how would you react?
You know what? During the regular season, I absolutely lose my marbles and go right after him, and I don't worry about a suspension or what the fine is because that's what you're paid to do. You're there to protect them, certainly, but right now the only thing that matters is winning. And those two played with each other with the London Knights championship team. Mitch Marner knows what Matthew Tkachuk's all about, and he's really dragged this team into a fight. But from my perspective, it has happened before in a playoff, and you just gotta turn your head, get ready for the next game. Don't worry about Matthew Tkachuk. He's gonna do his job. When a game gets out of control, and certainly it happened to us many a times playing in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, when I was with Buffalo and going to New Jersey or Toronto, these things happen. But the only thing that matters is winning the hockey game. Don't even think about Matthew Tkachuk going in to Game 5. It's all about the win.
Yeah, the fans and media are kind of dogging Marner right now. Obviously, he's the one that's under the spotlight. Hasn't been performing. Had a pretty good game last night, but
what do they want? Do they want Mitch Marner to fight Keith Tkachuk or Matthew Tkachuk and get his ass handed to him?
That's what I was going to ask. What should his reaction be?
I mean, wrestle around a little bit, but you don't want to get into that. I mean, You just won the game. Don't give them anything. If he fights him, he might break a cheekbone, and he's not going to fight. Mitch Marner is not a fighter. Matthew Tkachuk's a tough guy that is very skilled. He's an agitator, and that's exactly what he's supposed to do at the end of the game when you lose a playoff game. Try to create something. Try to create some momentum back onto your side and try to get a little bit of fear into Mitch Marner. But no, Mitch Marner doesn't fight Matthew Tkachuk.
Matt, what do you think with the Radko Gudas hit on David Kampf and the lack of response from the Leafs during the game when that hit took place?
Yeah, I'm still okay with it because, again, in regular season, I'd be very, very disappointed. It was a little late. It's really hard. I think when you look at Radko Gudas, he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. No one's going to feel sorry for Radko. So you're always going to think the worst of it. Having been in that position, it gets very, very loud. He was already on the prowl, ready to lay that hit on Kampf, and I don't think there was any stopping him. But it was a little late. I think a 2-minute penalty in the game. But again, you can't go after him. You can't go after him. You got to try to get a power play. You're hoping for a power play, maybe get in a skirmish, but you just can't take the extra penalty. The Leafs have been taking a lot of heat for going down 3-0 in the series, and their top 4 for not responding. Well, yesterday it's different. They score a couple goals and they find a way to win. And now we're talking about them not responding in these moments. They got the win. That's all that mattered.
Matt, I love hearing this from you because you were there. You've played on the ice. You've been there. You know what it takes. And to hear that, okay, it's fine that the Leafs didn't react to certain situations. I watched the game with a ton of Leaf fans, a ton of older Leaf fans. Yeah. You can imagine what they were yelling at that screen when they saw Gudas just standing there after the hit, looking around saying, no one's going to come at me, right? So the Leafs now have this tag, not only from fans, but in the media that they're quote unquote soft. When you watch them play, how do you look at them?
Well, I think when you look at their top 6, they're, besides Bunting, that plays a pretty hard style game when they had Hyman when he was there. They don't have a Matthew Tkachuk type player that's in their top 6. So I think that's the narrative. You know what you do? You take a pen, you write it down, and you wait for next year, and then you settle those scores, whether it be Gudas or whether it be Tkachuk. And that's when you settle them. Listen, I've seen star players, and I used to tell my guys, if I'm in Philadelphia and we're in a 2-1 game, if it's a 5-1 game, you better respond. But a 2-1 game, a 1-0 game, a 3-2 game, that's not the time to respond. I used to tell my guys in between periods when things used to get nasty and guys would come after me and they're like, they might jump me, they might slash me, they might, whatever they do not come in. When the time is right, we'll settle the scores. I'll take the bruise. I'll take the punch to the face. It's all about winning the game. That's all that matters.
Matt, what do you want to make of Sam Bennett's game? I find he just plays, sometimes crosses that line so much, and that's what makes him so effective in the playoffs. When you watch Sam Bennett play, what do you make of his game and just his style and demeanor on the ice?
That's a great question because what what a change in a player, right? I think that's what a coach does for you, or the perfect situation, whatever it may be. I'm not just talking hockey. You go to the right situation and you're appreciated and you're put in a position to succeed, not fail. Whereas in Calgary, he was just a guy that ran around and was fourth line and played penalty kill. He goes to Florida and he's put on a power play unit. He's expected to produce and he plays with an edge. So he is the perfect guy for a playoff series. I look at a guy like Max Domi in another series that Toronto fans know very well, that during the regular season, yeah, he's a good player, but it's a different style game and different players come to the forefront. I think that's why you see so many role guys or different role guys that you might be like, oh, wow, he's a better player than I thought, because the playoffs suit them so much more than the regular season.
Yeah, even a guy like Luke Shen, and you can argue that he's maybe been the best trade deadline move out of everybody, including Ryan O'Reilly, which is huge. He made a fantastic play yesterday. Just quickly, Mitch Marner the other day mentioned how he doesn't listen to the media. No one does. They don't care what he says. When you were playing, how tapped in were you to what was going on in the newspapers and what reporters were saying about you?
I love Mitch. He's a great player, and he's lying. Like, come on. You're living in Toronto. He's living in a beautiful place and probably Yorkville, and he's walking outside and he's not listening to the media. It's impossible to get away from the media, because even if you don't pick up a paper, even if you don't log on to whatever outlet you're listening to, these guys are all on Instagram. They're all on Twitter, and all these social feeds are there. Listen, Twitter is where you get all your news the quickest, and that's where you get the most pundits, the most experts out there giving their various opinions. So he can say what he wants. I was always in tune. I wanted to know. Not that it didn't bother me. There's some times when you're not playing great that it does bother you, and you're only human. Of course, it's going to affect you. You're a really good athlete. You're really good at your job, and when you're not doing it well, or when people are criticizing you, certainly it's going to hurt. It also should fire you up to play even better, and to maybe even dig deeper or get out of your normalcy or your realm that you're used to playing in. So he's lying. It's Toronto. He's listening to everything, and fortunately came up with a huge goal last night.
Well, last night, Edmonton, the Oilers did respond, and Alex Pietrangelo with a vicious two-handed slash to Leon Draisaitl. What do you think the punishment for the Vegas defenseman will be?
Yeah, tale of two teams, right? They were awful the game before and absolutely unbelievable last night. It's not even like those two teams should be playing. As for Pietrangelo, we saw the nurse thing with the instigator. He should get a game. I think it's an automatic. I know it can be rescinded. We'll have to see if they do that. But to me, that's an automatic game suspension. As for Pietrangelo, if nurse gets 0, give Pietrangelo 1. If you give nurse 1, then give Pietrangelo 2. It's a non-hockey play. I think, like everyone has seen, it was premeditated. The game was out of hand. He comes over and delivers the slash, and that should be suspended. Whether Draisaitl was hurt or not, that's a star player, a non-hockey play, and premeditated, in my opinion. So either 1 game or 2 games, depending on what nurse gets.
Barney, how would you compare that to the Bunting hit on Chernak? Bunting got 3 games for that hit in what was called just a hockey play.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it now. There's been so many throughout, but I remember saying
kind of like a drive-by elbow.
Yeah, I thought Bunting deserved at the time 2 games. Now that I'm remembering it, I think I put out on Twitter right after it happened 2 games, and I'm surprised he got 3 games. But I thought 2. It was very high and came through and injury reinforced. But you look at, again, premeditated. It wasn't like he tried to slash the stick or whatever. He came right at the arm, got him up high too. So to me, it's 1 or 2 games, depending on, again, nurse has to play. And if you're not suspending nurse for an automatic instigator, which is an automatic rule under 5 minutes, then give him 1 game. If you suspend nurse, either way, he's getting suspended, and this hurts Vegas a lot.
Yeah, and the Oilers are going to need nurse, by the way. Can you help me make sense of the Edmonton Oilers? Because, we were just talking about this, but one night, Stuart Skinner is horrible. He can't stop anything. The defense is falling all over the place, as we saw with Evan Bouchard. Then the next night, everything clicks the right way. Who are the true Edmonton Oilers in these playoffs?
I'd say more the latter, more than what we saw yesterday. I mean, McDavid was absolutely flying, and not that he hasn't been great all playoffs long. he hasn't had the same jump that we're accustomed to seeing the best player in the world have. Draisaitl, obviously, he's been incredible. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins scores his first goal of the playoffs, but I think they're more apt to play like this in the next game rather than game 3. That's the Leafs game 3 and the Oilers game 3 are two of the worst defensive performances I've seen in NHL history. That's how bad both of them were. I mean, they were both awful. Like, we're talking Pee-wee and Bantam mistakes, stuff that just doesn't happen. And I can't even imagine watching that tape and being like, what the hell are we doing? Like, stuff that just shouldn't happen at this level, especially in the playoffs. So I think they're more like game 4 than game 3.
Evan Bouchard, he's kind of really come into his own this playoffs. You think he has, like 15 points in 10 games. When you watch him play, you see a guy who's now taken that next step and finally evolved into being an elite number 1 defenseman.
Yeah, I coached against him when I was with Kitchener Rangers, and he was with London, and he was an absolute stud there, a bomb of a shot. I mean, a bomb of a shot. Underrated skating for his size. That's exactly why they made the trade for Tyson Barrie for Matthias Ekholm. And that is, you talk about underrated trades. This guy is a stud in Matthias Ekholm. He's changed that defense, except for game 3. But he's changed the way that they defend and their chances of playing in a Stanley Cup and even winning it. You don't win with Tyson Barrie. You'll win with Matthias Ekholm. Not that Tyson Barrie can't be a valuable part, but when he was traded, I'm getting Edmonton fans and friends texting me, tweeting at me, Tyson Barrie's a stud on the power play. I can be a stud at 50 years old on a power play with Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, and McJesus. So just give him the puck. You have a 97 breakout. You just leave it behind the net, and he just goes. He gets it in the zone. You pass it off, and Bouchard is now taking the reins. And they knew that. They knew what they had in Evan Bouchard. That's what made that trade so easy and so evident. And they got a stud in defensively in Matthias Ekholm.
Yeah, it's nice having 2 cannons on the point to go with Draisaitl and McDavid.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, Barney, before we let you go, do you have any bets for us tonight?
I do. They're just not for tonight, but they're for the next couple of days.
Gotcha.
I'm all over the Canes. I have them going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay.
I had them in Vegas at the start. We might have to reevaluate as we go through, but I'm on the Canes to close it out. Too good, even with the injuries that they have. Leafs are going to win Game 5 at home and get to a Game 6. And my big play of the night last night was Golden State. Well, Golden State is going to turn the narrative, a team that is awful on the road, and beat the LA Lakers and come home for a Game 7.
I love it. Matthew Barnaby, thank you so much. Enjoy your trip to Europe and happy belated, man.
Thank you, man. It's going to be a rough few weeks. The liver's ready.